The Nicomachean Ethics of Aristotle.
Read and presented by George Pitropogiannakis.
Book 3, Chapter 1. Now, since virtue is concerned with the regulation of feelings, and actions and praise and blame arise upon such as are voluntary, while for the involuntary allowance is made, and sometimes compassion is excited, it is perhaps a necessary task for those who are investigating the nature of virtue to draw out the distinction between what is voluntary and what involuntary. And it is certainly useful for legislators with respect to the assigning of honors and punishments. Involuntary actions, then, are thought to be of two kinds, being done either on compulsion or by reason of ignorance. An action is, properly speaking, compulsory when the origination is external to the agent, being such that in it the agent, perhaps we may more properly say the patient, contributes nothing, as if a wind were to convey you anywhere, or men having power over your person. But when actions are done, either from fear of greater evils or from some honorable motive, as for instance, if you were ordered to commit some base act by a despot who had your parents or children in his power, and they were to be saved upon your compliance or die upon your refusal, in such cases there is room for a question whether the actions are voluntary or involuntary. A similar question arises with respect to cases of throwing goods overboard in a storm. Abstractedly, no man throws away his property willingly, but with a view to his own and his shipmates' safety, anyone would who had any sense. The truth is, such actions are of a mixed kind, but are most like voluntary actions, for they are choice-worthy at the time when they are being done, and the end or object of the action must be taken with reference to the actual occasion. Further, we must denominate an action voluntary or involuntary at the time of doing it. Now, in the given case, the man acts voluntarily because the originating of the motion of his limbs in such actions rests with himself, and where the origination is in himself, it rests with himself to do or not to do. Such actions, then, are voluntary, though in the abstract perhaps involuntary, because no one would choose any of such things in and by itself. But for such actions, men sometimes are even praised, as when they endure any disgrace or pain to secure great and honorable equivalents. If vice versa, then they are blamed because it shows a base mind to endure things very disgraceful for no honorable object, or for a trifling one. For some, again, no praise is given, but allowance is made, as where a man does what he should not, by reason of such things as overstrain the powers of human nature or pass the limits of human endurance. Some acts perhaps there are for which compulsion cannot be pleaded, but a man should rather suffer the worst and die. How absurd, for instance, are the pleas of compulsion with which Alcmaeon in Euripides' play excuses his matricide. But it is difficult sometimes to decide what kind of thing should be chosen instead of what, or what endured in preference to what and much, more so to abide by one's decisions. For in general, the alternatives are painful and the actions required are base, and so praise or blame is awarded according as persons have been compelled or no. What kind of actions then are to be called compulsory? May we say simply and abstractedly, whenever the cause is external and the agent contributes nothing, and that where the acts are in themselves such as one would not wish but choice-worthy at the present time, and in preference to such and such things, and where the origination rests with the agent, the actions are in themselves involuntary, but at the given time and in preference to such and such things voluntary, and they are more like voluntary than involuntary, because the actions consist of little details, and these are voluntary. But what kind of things one ought to choose instead of what, it is not easy to settle, for there are many differences in particular instances. But suppose a person should say, things pleasant and honorable exert a compulsive force, for that they are external and do compel. At that rate every action is on compulsion, because these are universal motives of action. Again, they who act on compulsion and against their will do so with pain. But they who act by reason of what is pleasant or honorable act with pleasure. It is truly absurd for a man to attribute his actions to external things instead of to his own capacity for being easily caught by them, or again to ascribe the honorable to himself and the base once to pleasure. So then that seems to be compulsory, whose origination is from without, the party compelled contributing nothing.